I apologize if this is really bright for you guys, but Aries, when she was playing with a giant teddy bear, knocked over my tripod with my camera on it, and it fell to the floor and broke the top of my tripod off, the connector piece between my camera and the pod itself. So now I have no tripod. So I'll probably be doing my next few videos just by holding my camera, so I apologize in advance for the shaky lens and whatnot that may occur. Now, I stumbled upon this really interesting site the other day, Spirit Science. They're on YouTube, and they've got a whole whack of lessons. I think they're at 12 or 13 or something like that now, if not more, on all about the science of the spirit and things like that. So they talk about crystals, a hidden history of humanity, how to work with your chakras, and all this other stuff. And I found this really interesting. I watched their video, The Hidden History of Humanity. And now there's not a lot of factual evidence to support a few of the views, but it's one of those things you take with an open mind and then you use to piece together puzzles. So, coming from a religious background, I know the story, a lot of the stories of the Bible. And in the Hidden History of Humanity, it actually covered a few of those old Bible stories that I had trouble really seeing in a different light anyway. So there's one about Jesus, or Christ consciousness. So the morals brought down by the Bible were, love your neighbor, love yourself, love your neighbor as yourself, treat others as you would wish to be treated, because you live in a point where the physical harm that you cause or mental harm you cause to others reflects as harm to yourself. And so you don't want them to experience pain, you want them to experience joy and happiness, because from their joy and happiness you receive the same. So Christ consciousness was the reason Joseph and Mary had a baby without Mary's virginity being taken was they mated like interdimensionally through meditation techniques or something rather intense, and then that's why she was a virgin physically when Jesus was born. So Jesus was a higher consciousness being that was born as a physical human and had his whole lifespan to reach the point of Christ consciousness, or to reach the point of where he died for our sins. I think he was born with Christ consciousness, right? As he was a higher dimensional being already. And so he died and was resurrected and then ascended for our sins in the Bible. So Jesus died so that we could attain perfection in the future in the Bible. And then in this story, Jesus died so that we could attain higher levels of consciousness in the future. So he died for our sins so that we could live forever, or he died so that we would know how to live. Basically, I don't know necessarily if you would use forever in this particular instance, but how we would be able to attain a higher consciousness, which eventually could lead you to live forever if you could attain a high level of such, which is rather interesting. So I thought that was really cool. A really interesting video. It's a lot of information to take in. Talked about polar shift, the Great Void, and all these other things. And that's another one, the Great Void. I heard a lot about this before I watched this. It wasn't very well explained. People are just talking about planet Nibiru, and 2012, December 21st, it's going to cause a 3 days or 4 days of darkness. Nobody knows what's going to cause it. We don't know what's going to happen. The way I took that from what I had gathered when I heard those was that it would be just 3 days of literal darkness. There would be no sun or maybe even stars. It would just be dark. But the way the secret or Hidden History of Humanity explained it was that this great void was not just something that would be, it wouldn't just, create a lack of light. It would wipe our consciousness clean. It would create a darkness in our brains. It would wipe our memories and send us back to square one as consciousness. You ever wondered, you see old archaeological buildings and things like that, like old digs and stuff, and they have really small doors and like buildings and things like that? Well, I was thinking about it. Jesus rode an ass, like a donkey. And, I imagine donkeys aren't very big. So what if Jesus rode a donkey instead of a horse because he was a smaller human? Like Jesus was only like 4 feet tall or something like that. Like, oh, well, it's a possibility because way back when, humans were actually smaller. And then the way Hidden Humanity explains it is we were, as we reach different levels of consciousness, our physical vessels tend to be larger. So anywhere from like 4 feet is the base level, like all the way up to like the highest level of consciousness, which is like 50 to 60 feet or something crazy. Like, oh, well, that's interesting. And then Jesus and his species were short, early humans. And that's why like the pygmies, the savages that live in south somewhere, I don't know, but they're really small people. They're really small human beings. Like, what if all of humanity was like that at one point in time? Kind of crazy, like whole armies of little people. It's like something straight out of Lord of the Rings. So I thought that was interesting. Now, if this void is actually real, and this void is coming into December 21st, 2012, to start a new age of consciousness, it would basically be like the Armageddon described in the Bible, which as another point, what if the Book of Revelations, and I've always wondered this for quite a while now, what if the Book of Revelations isn't going to happen because God said it's going to happen, but it's going to happen because it's already happened before, and they know, and they've recorded it now and said this has happened once, it's going to happen again. These are the signs. And so you know leading up to what will come. Like, interesting. So I'm imagining December 21st is when this shift, this consciousness shift, is apparently supposed to take place. Now, it's not necessarily, well, I guess, it's not really like, boom, this day, but it is, we're in the middle of a time period. Now, I've heard this before as well. We're in like a 29-year window, which is in, or which has a like 7-year window, which has a 3-year window, all inside of each other. And then these are the times in which this consciousness will come about. So it's not something that happens overnight, but this great void is something that will happen eventually, soon, to us as a species, and either send us back, or some of us will ascend. And that's another thing where the rapture comes from. You think of the rapture, people are, just like they were raised up into heaven. Well, that would be what maybe consciousness ascension would be like. People are seeing other people being raised consciously to other levels of humanity, or to consciousness, while they stay below. And then so they continue on the humanity, they get wiped and sent back to square zero and start over again. I mean, how did we lose so many ancient civilizations, so many ancient technologies and things like that? So much knowledge was just lost and went through such dark ages. How do we really explain that? I don't really know, because I haven't studied history. I mean, really, history is a huge, I haven't studied the history of the entire world well enough to know what exactly happened to all of the ancient civilizations and technologies. But not necessarily from an ignorant point of view, but from a lack of knowledge point of view, I can see how if we were wiped consciously and our memories were taken with it, how we wouldn't know how to explain how they created the pyramids, or how they had computers, or how they had such advanced knowledge of the galaxy and everything that we have now. And this is only with advanced computers and satellites. And even then, they knew things that we didn't find out until recently. But the hidden history of humanity, it's almost like a tongue twister, explains a lot of that rather well. So I'm going to link that to this video down below, and you guys can watch it. It's really, really interesting. But most definitely keep an open mind to it. They talk about spirit channeling, or think of it as spirit channeling or consciousness channeling. Thothing, the god of somebody or other from, I think it was Egypt, and all these other crazy things, and this god that helped, talks about the city Atlantis, this god that helped create Atlantis, or not a god necessarily, but this being that helped create Atlantis, just recently passed 15 years ago, and put all of his knowledge into Zachariah Chichen, I think. You may have heard of him. And it's just a lot of it's a lot to take in, and it's is it real? Is it fiction? Well, that's for you to decide. But I would most definitely like you guys to watch that, and then, post whatever comments you feel you want to on there. Maybe you'll get some answers. And then come back to my channel and tell me what you think, because I'm most definitely interested in hearing what you have to say. I let my wife watch it with me, and I got her thoughts on it, and I would like to really hear yours. Humanity has to become more like a hive mind, I personally believe. We can't just exist as an individually minded being, because unless we have the Christ consciousness kind of thing. But if I exist by myself and you exist by yourself, well, this is mine, I don't care about you so much. Or that's yours, and you'll keep me from getting it. Whereas if we have the hive mind, the ability to, what's yours is yours, or what's yours is mine, and what's mine is yours, kind of like a marriage, then humanity itself will get better. It's not like I can hoard all of this and you'll starve to death because I have, 50 of something while you have 0. It will be, let's split it equally, or let's share with everyone, so that we can all benefit instead of just one person, overly benefiting. So, interesting thoughts for the day. And somebody said I had plagiarism on one of my videos on how to decalcify your pineal gland, when I showed you the 81 flicks to the back of the head. Now, I watched that video once, and then I did a video which was rather similar to it. And yes, the credit should have gone to the previous creator of the video, but at the same time, that knowledge existed before that man came about. And I don't really think or know if anyone has the original, the idea of where that originally came from. So, interesting things. Now, the pineal gland was supposed to also be your third eye. It's supposed to be the actual size of an eyeball. Now it's shrunk to the size of a raisin. Things like fluoride in your water and things like that will calcify your pineal gland. But if you have a high alkaline diet and you eat really healthy, you eat really good veggies and things like that, don't have a lot of pesticides and chemicals on them, you can help actually cleanse your pineal gland. As well as eating meat potentially hurts your pineal gland. Basically, the theory is that the souls or the energy of an animal that you are consuming, now that energy is becoming a part of you, and it blocks or disrupts your pineal gland because you're not of pure human essence. And so that's why you're supposed to just eat vegetables. interesting thoughts for the day. So I hope to hear from you guys soon, and have a good one. Namaste. Peace.